I'd like to tell my story, my real and raw story. It's not something I'm completely comfortable with sharing still. I don't think I will ever fully be comfortable sharing it. But the world isn't going to stop victim blaming and slut shaming. That's why I'm sharing my story with hopes that awareness will be brought to this issue within the community. It all happened when I turned 14 years old.
This guy treated me great. It was like a fairy tale. And then slowly things started to happen. It started with more just emotional abuse and belittling me, making me feel like I wasn't worth anything, convincing me that I wasn't special, things like that. And then it slowly started turning into more aggressive behavior, which then turned into physical violence. Purity was something that I had always thought was going to be my path. I thought that that's how I wanted to live my life, and that's something I wanted to save for marriage. But this man took that from me and decided that it was his to take. This was not something I talked about for 2 years until after the event. I was super ashamed. I was carrying the weight of this super traumatic experience that I had over and over again. It was repeated, this wasn't a one-time thing. I decided that I wasn't gonna speak up, wasn't gonna tell my parents, because my first reaction of when I told somebody was so horrible. Eventually, things came out to my parents through court and through the police, and it has been a journey for me from when I first told my parents and how they responded until now. Their response back then isn't the same as it is now, and it takes time for them to understand what's happening to their daughter and why I was acting the way I was when I was a teenager. It was all a result of me trying to push my parents away in order to keep them from seeing how hurt I was. But the biggest issue is fighting PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder. That's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to face, because it takes what is reality and kind of distorts it. And so I'd really like if people could understand that, I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can to handle all situations the way that God wants me to handle them and the way that I know I should. But dealing with PTSD and things like that, it's difficult, and sometimes it's hard to not be brought back to that place. There's nights where I don't sleep and I have flashback after flashback where I'm brought back to that place, and to me that's my reality, and I can't seem to be brought back to where I am right now. And I think the hardest part with PTSD is that my parents, my friends, and people close to me don't understand it, and it's not their fault, but it's really hard for me to live my life normally and live every day not scared of my past and not have that just hold me down and stuff. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. To me, it's just the fact that no matter how low of a place that I get, or how alone I feel, or times that I feel that I cannot continue on with my life because the pain of what happened to me is just overbearing. It's just a reminder that God is in control, and that with me having a relationship with Him means I can get through any trial that I'm faced with. When I was wanting to turn to self-harm, I used Philippians 4:13, and I would write it on my thigh or write it on my arm, and that was a representation to me of you don't have to turn to the ways of the enemy wants you to turn to. The enemy wanted me to self-harm and wanted me to fall back into those bad habits of telling me that I wasn't good enough and I wasn't worthy. Philippians 4:13 became my stronghold of what got me through it. People ask me, how can you help so many other victims and relive your story over and over again? Doesn't that, weigh heavily on you reliving it? And actually, it's been very therapeutic and healing for me, because I'm able to take such a horrible thing in my life that I really can't fully process why it happened to me or why I had to go through that. But being able to take that horrible traumatic experience and turning it into something good is something that I can live with. That's something that I can be able to push through every day, knowing that I'm doing something good and that God used me to fight that battle for Him. I really truly think that God placed that trauma in my life to be able to use me for good now with Voices of Consent and to be able to impact the lives of so many others.
I am Kelsey Clay, and this is my story.